Hello, and welcome back to About the Author. I'm Cooper Anderson. Today, we're going to take a look and, try to reflect on the career of a great writer. Ladies and gentlemen, the inventor of the 8 a.m. Scotch and Soda, James Joyce.
Woo! Thank you. I'm excited to be here. It's not often that I get up these days.
Oh, James. There's not a lot of new stuff we can talk about because, you're dead. But I just wanted to ask you, what do you think is important for us to talk about?
Well, what better place to start than the start, I suppose? Well, I was born in 1882 on a cold February night. The first of 10, my birth wasn't helpful to my middle-class family and continued to face financial difficulties from there.
Okay, so we kind of got the rags to riches story here.
Actually, not exactly. Although that is something I like to address in my books. We were lower middle class, certainly, but never poor. Never poor. My father clearly made that distinction. The real issue was my father. Although I didn't see much of it, he neglected my brothers and sisters, but since I was the smartest of his children, and the person who could most likely bail him out of debt as well, he trusted me most of all.
And certainly that ended up working out for you, and I think it did to him as well.
Oh.
Now, while that's all well and good, the reason we're here, according to the producers at least, is to talk about your literary career. Before we get into it, what do you think people should know about?
Well, based on reputation alone, people like to think I revolutionized what they call modernism. Writing from the point of stream of consciousness. I was just writing my thoughts first, but I noticed its unconventional nature when I got to university.
So at that point, it was probably getting pretty serious, right?
Maybe, yeah. It only got serious when I perfected it in Ulysses. That wasn't until much later, of course, in the peak of my career. That book transcended my stardom into the next level.
Of course, you were obviously a literary celebrity, I'm certain.
Aye, but it wasn't like that at first. Back then, especially in Ireland, the only viable way for young writers to receive publication is not through an extremely well-known book, was through magazines. A lot of times they didn't take to my themes too well, or at all, actually.
Really? That seems somewhat surprising, actually, given that your talent was always exceptional. Why do you think that is?
Pretty simply, it was the controversy. Especially in my heyday, I wanted to be really controversial. I wanted to come out against the Irish and British officials for the treatment of our incumbents. And naturally, coming out against both sides interested neither one, so it's really hard to find work.
I see. Well, that had to change at some point, obviously. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, right?
Exactly. I think that, especially with Ulysses, over time, it really established preliminary status for me. The difference was, at the time of the release, the public thought that negative to be exposed to things like temptation and lust and alcoholism and all sorts of those things. It was a dialogue that I started to be respected and began to be respected, and it was delivery in the stream of consciousness that allowed it to be effective.
So with that in mind, you consider it difficult for an average readership to view your body of work, for instance?
I'd hope not. It's apparent to me, though, although it's very complex in its structure, I consider that not to alter the condition of the human consciousness, but instead represent it a little better. The situations portrayed, I would like to think, are practical and applicable to the human experience. It starts a dialogue, not only about these situations, but how the mind interacts with these every situations.
Well, that's remarkably interesting, Joyce, certainly. So you would describe your work as timely, then?
Maybe not as it once was, in my opinion. To some extent, even still, the point of my work at its core was to be active in the social community of Ireland. The issues in my books, although found in nations like America, were very serious issues in Ireland. Issues that, regardless of their importance, proved difficult to discuss on a legislative and social level.
You experienced much of what happened in your books, then?
I would say that. Especially in Portrait of an Artist of His Young Man and Ulysses are both somewhat autobiographical. I believe that they drew much distaste from officials due to not necessarily a distaste for religion, but a concern with religion. Not necessarily skepticism, but opening ideas of a transition into faith and separations between faith and governmental power. This is because, of course, throughout my life, I experienced such a profound transition, whether to be a change in particular taste or the mind transitioning into questioning reality.
So, the bleak family situations portrayed in your book, those, would you say, are accurate as well?
Again, somewhat. More for my brothers and sisters than me, you see. The family life in Ireland, at least, was very unstable. To have a dialogue about what a loving family should be, well, that just wasn't your business. What somewhat did with their family was their own. Regardless of any standards of decency and behaviour, unfortunately, many parents who were heavy abusers of alcohol and, if not neglected, beat their children. To discuss the family as something that can be gauged within good and bad was very controversial at the time.
Well, would you describe your works as kind of a critique to these issues?
In some respects, yes. But that is my opinion coming out in my writing. Mainly is my intention to start a relatable dialogue between people in Ireland, both on a social and religious level. I want most for people to question the nature of reality relative to their personal perceptions. More specifically, I want people to be self-aware, to really question themselves and their morals and their faults in order to continue to learn spiritual change and also to come to terms with their individuals. For them to fully realize that it really is okay for you to think and act the way you do. That was the point of the work.
So, thematically, the issues focused on primarily problems in Ireland, you'd say?
Definitely. That's my intention, at least. Although, despite this, I believe my work holds longevity for its commentary on personal transition. Ireland being a solid setting for personal conflict, and nation of Ireland was a breeding ground for it. The timelessness, indeed, I owe to the structure.
Modernism, of course.
Exactly. The stream of consciousness enabled a resonant relatability within me works, especially Portrait of an Artist of a Young Man. The complex thought digression told from a third person was completely fitting, and it described somewhat accurately depicted the paradoxical and complex nature of the human mind. I was the one that popularized modernism with a new and effective way to tell this narrative.
Well, I must say, Joyce, just looking at your linguistic resume, 18 fluent linguistic languages, multiple preliminary works of literature, I must say, on a fundamental level, you must be remarkably advanced.
Yes, and I owe much talent to my knowledge of linguistic purpose. You see, by training myself to speak these other languages, it opened up an entire new world of literature to me. Once I discovered how language interacts throughout cultures or linguistic barriers, I was able to take my sentence complexity, modernistic style, and development to the next new level.
Wow, remarkable. How could one not judge James Joyce as a significant and preliminary writer, one that should be studied by all, especially in, let's say, an Intro to English major course? When we get back, analyzing James Joyce, how this all relates.
And we're back. Once again, I'm Cooper Anderson, and this is James Joyce. James, how was that break for you?
Exquisite. Thanks, Coop.
Great. Now, when we left off, we were talking about structure, but we're going to be getting into some more superficial stuff now. From a broader standpoint, what do you consider to be the grand picture of your writing? What it all amounts to, given structure, setting, experience, all of that. What does it equal?
Well, what I think you're asking is, what is my relation as an author to my writing? To answer that simply, I can tell you that it's all connected. The setting, the characters, the situation, they're also very specifically chosen to represent an issue that's personal to me. Whether it be the balance of power in Ireland or the importance of religious reflection. More universal themes like personal transition, those that are more universally applicable, but that doesn't change the fact that in my stream of consciousness, I'm writing about me. Alright? And my experiences, my social culture, if it resonates with those around me and causes concern to be altered, then fantastic. But it all starts with my experience.
Wow, great stuff. In addition, you would say reflection is extremely powerful?
Oh, absolutely. Encouraged even. While my stories serve as commentaries to society, primarily the modernist style, as I said before, opens up a whole realm of relatability. By nature, by writing this way, you force people to view opinions as if they're thinking them themselves. It's interesting, surely, but you can take the perspective of the individual when reading my work. It really can cause people to evaluate the current state of reality. For me, that was causing Ireland to look at its domestic problems, to change the Irish family life and their norms to something a little bit more normal. to assure that, contrary to what is popular belief, religious questioning is completely normal and not the devil putting thoughts in your head. That inner conflict is just completely normal.
And for that reason, your work remains timeless?
Not explicitly for political reasons, but for understanding the way language interacts with the human mind, then absolutely. Look, texts on the Irish political hierarchy aren't going to change anything that happens in America, nor will it change what happens in Ireland today. It is not the thematic sentiment of what's happening in my books, but the structural significance of style. Look, let me ask you a question. You ever seen Scrubs?
What, Scrubs? The cheesy medical show?
It's not cheesy, and you're welcome, you see. Scrubs, like many stories of its kind, follow a single character through a continuous stream of conscious. Without portrait of an artist of young man, and especially Ulysses, we wouldn't see the luxury of such art.
For better or worse, we're talking about Scrubs. So, all in all, you're still significant today?
Yes, as much as you can be from a grave. Still, my work is aged better than I. It seems the longer Ulysses is out, the more credentials it earns as part of the literary canon. Still, what's really important, I think, is to understand how language interacts with the mind, and given that the two are both extremely complex on their own, it is important to me, a talented writer and an even more talented linguist, to spend my time evaluating the process of thinking with my own mind. How seemingly I sometimes do a thing that intentionally sabotages my happiness, because indeed it is the point of my work to understand the mind and all of its complexities.
Well, James, thank you. I didn't mean to get snappy. We know you like your Scrubs, but I'm afraid that's all the time we have today. Thank you, James Joyce, for being on the show.
Aye, absolutely. Thanks, Coop.
Once again, I'm Cooper Anderson, and this is 60 Seconds.
Thanks.